Hi everyone, I'm Kayleigh. As many of you know and are experiencing firsthand, COVID-19 is placing a great deal of stress on the finances of households across the country. A major source of stress is uncertainty. This is why taking a conscious look at your current finances and spending is so important. Do not be scared to take a look in case you don't like the answer. If it's bad, at least you know how to make a positive change. Only an ostrich sticks its head in the sand to try and avoid a problem. Lastly, looking at your current income and spending to prepare a budget is not nearly as difficult and time-consuming as you may think. Before we look at how to prepare a budget, here are some broad strategies that can be employed to try and reduce this financial stress. If you do have a little extra money due to certain reductions in expenditures, save it. If the economy gets worse before it gets better, this saving will give you peace of mind that you have something to help you weather the storm. In the COVID-19 outbreak, there are several costs that have been reduced, such as transport costs and eating out. Rather than spending these savings on other unnecessary items, allocate the saving to necessities, such as data for lectures or learning. If you don't have a necessity, then save this cash in case you see an even further reduction in your income. In these uncertain times, be extra cautious before investing in new schemes, as you may need cash sooner than you once thought. In addition, be wary of get-rich-quick schemes, as this may lead to scams. Please see our Stockpiles webinar around the second minute mark for tips on identifying potential scams. On that note, if you do have investments, try as far as possible not to cash in these investments, as the market is currently not in a good state. If you do need cash, rather consider doing this though than entering into expensive debt. Place an emphasis on the reduction of expenditure rather than looking towards loans. This will be better in the long run, as you'll avoid having to pay expensive interest. Here are a few tips that can be employed to try and reduce your expenditure on a monthly basis. Try to go to the grocery store only once or twice a month to reduce transport costs and the temptation to buy unnecessary items. Draw up a list before going to the shop to ensure that only essentials are purchased. Anything not on the list does not get purchased. Be water and electricity wise to reduce these expenses. Consider limiting the usage of heaters and kettles. Boil the kettle once a day and keep hot water in a flask, or only boil the amount of water that you know you will be using. Limit water usage by having short showers and placing a bucket in the shower so that excess water can be used for other purposes, such as watering the garden or washing. Involve all members of the household in the conversation on expense reduction so that everyone understands the consequences of their actions and there's an overall buy-in. Try to limit food wastage by only buying goods that you know you will be using and buying items with a longer shelf life. Google how to stop all WASP services with your cell phone provider. These are services such as music or pictures that are paid for through your airtime. These have been known to be problematic, with people reporting vanishing airtime without authorizing the services. So it's good to periodically make use of the Stop All SMS. I've had this problem a couple of times in the last 3 years. Even the smallest reductions count when aggregated. Next, we will discuss the budgeting process. I'll hand over to Wayne, who will discuss this in more detail.
Thank you, Kayleigh. My name is Wayne, and next we're going to have a look at the budgeting process. Step 1 is to identify and understand your income and spending habits. Start by taking your cash out salary after all deductions and any other non-salary forms of income you have. To identify your expenses, take a few months' bank statement and run through these on a line-by-line basis. This in itself can be quite an eye-opening exercise, helping you to see where your money really is going. You may identify some subscriptions you either don't want anymore or don't need, or perhaps may even find some debit orders that are unauthorized. Whether this is due to fraud or error, you can now go and correct these with your bank. In addition, going forward, whenever you spend cash, make a note of how much you're spending and on what you're spending it so that you can add this information to your budget later. Step 2 is to categorize your expenses into firstly monthly and ad hoc expenses. Next, you'll analyze your monthly expenses and subcategorize those into those that are controllable and those that are non-controllable. Examples of non-controllable expenses are things like rent, rates, and taxes. Controllable monthly expenses are things that you need to pay for each month, such as groceries, water, and electricity, but that you do have some control over. Step 3 is to analyze your controllable monthly expenses and look for realistic changes for the better that you can make. A good example is perhaps spending less money on airtime and making data calls using a service like WhatsApp to try and reduce costs. Another thing you can do to reduce these expenses is substitute expensive grocery items for less expensive ones when it comes to things like soap or toilet paper. Think ahead as well. As a student, data may be more important in the coming months with virtual learning and online learning, and things like transport may become less important. So you need to plan on how you think you're going to need to spend on each of these. Again, use the suggestions made by Carli regarding any existing debt to try and manage this so that you can reduce your debt and stay out of debt. Next, in step 4, you're going to analyze your ad hoc expenses and differentiate between your wants and your needs as discussed earlier by Carli. Consider eliminating the wants and also look for any other expenses such as gym memberships that you can afford to drop. As Kayleigh discussed earlier, we also need to save for the short-term uncertain future. See whether you can put aside a little amount each month in case your income decreases or the COVID crisis remains for an extended period of time. If possible, you should also try to save for general long-term purposes. Step 5 requires you to look 12 months ahead to identify expenses you think you will need to cover during this period. This may be things such as saving for your January school textbook and stationery requirements, saving for repairs and maintenance, and birthday gifts. In order to determine this amount, consider what you'll need in 12 months' time and divide that by 12. If you are going to have to pay for that in less than 12 months, then you would divide that amount by how many months there are between this month and when you'd need to pay them. Now that you've had a look and prepared your budget, have a look at your net surplus or deficit. If this is a deficit, you are going to have to revisit your controllable monthly, ad hoc, and savings to balance your budget so that this deficit becomes zero. If you have a surplus, it's best practice to add this surplus to your long-term savings. However, if you would like to leave a little bit left over, that's fine too. The last step is going to be to prepare your 12-month budget. This is done by taking your monthly budget and multiplying each of the line items by 12 months. Notice that when we had our savings for specific items in our monthly budget, those are not going to appear as savings in your 12-month budget because they are now going to appear as expenses. Again, have a look at your net deficit or surplus and adjust your budget as is required. Each month, revisit your budget to see how well you performed against it. Make any adjustments as you see you need to. And in doing this, you will develop the financial skills and discipline to manage your finances better. This will put you in a great position to start creating and building wealth instead of spending all of the income that you do earn. Thank you for watching. We hope you found this video useful. Please feel free to share this with your friends and family. And for any comments and queries, please contact Kayleigh. Thank you and goodbye.